record. Welcome everybody to this Talk to the Entities taster class. My name's Alison Cox. I'm a Talk to the Entities certified facilitator. Oh, it thought I was speaking Spanish. I'm already speaking multiple languages at once. How does it get even better? I'm so grateful for all of you that are on here right now. There is, let's see. We've got technical things going on. Here we go. There's over 500 people that are on this taster and growing. So yay, welcome everybody. And it's so fun to see familiar faces and hearing that people have taken Talk to the Entities classes before. And I think I heard someone saying they've never taken an Access Consciousness class before, which is so cool. Thank you all for being here, wherever you're coming from and all around the world. Talk to the Entities is something magical that came into my life probably around 9 years ago, I believe. And it was created over a period of time. It's an Access Consciousness specialty class. So Gary Douglas is the founder of Access Consciousness. He was talking to entities when he started to create Access Consciousness. And there's all kinds of things that you can do and be and play with that have either been shut down, locked down, made wrong, that you can now expose even more so than when I first joined, started learning about this stuff 10 years ago or 9 years ago. And entities, let's see, where do we begin? So Talk to the Entities was created by Shannon O'Hara. You can check all this stuff out at talktotheentities.com too. And she is just amazing. I've learned so much from her. And now there are facilitators all over the world spreading these tools so that you can use them at home whenever you'd like. There's a lot of misinformation about entities, especially, in America. We think entities are, well, if you take your average American, most people think that entities are scary or not real, or they're just, what you see in the movies. Like if you happen to purchase a haunted house, it's gonna make noises and ding things and scratch you and then kill your whole family. Well, that doesn't usually happen. In fact, entities don't have to be scary at all. In other countries, entities can be a big part of the culture. So like in India, there's lots of gods and temples. In Asia, lots of entity practice there. And what else is possible when you take away the limitation of, actually being able to communicate, receive from, contribute to clear entities? So we'll kind of get into, first of all, housekeeping. If you have any questions, you can raise your hand. You can type them in the chat. We'll unmute you. And I guess we can start with what are the 4 things that you will ever do with any entity. So after listening to this, you're going to actually walk away with more tools than you had before, or you're going to hear these again and they're going to hit, I'm going to guess, in a different way. So yay, welcome everyone. The only 4 things you're ever going to do with any entity is clear, communicate, receive, cooperate. And we get into a lot of those in the Talk to the Entities beginning class. But for now, we can start talking about, if you're ever in a bind with an entity, what does that look like? In a bind with an entity, you either know an entity is there and you feel angry, upset, your life isn't working, you're blaming this entity. Or you don't know that entities are there and your body is reacting in a certain way. Maybe you have headaches, or you are in a bad mood, or you're reacting for no reason. Your skin is breaking out, you have eczema, bloating, all kinds of, your body's always letting you know what's around you. So you get to have all of these different ways of starting to get to know when entities are around. Um, if you didn't think that entities were real, guess what? If you were on the fence and you're in this Zoom, I'm just going to say from my point of view, entities are real. You can know what you know, but I don't think you'd be here if you didn't think that. But when I was first starting, I had no idea. I grew up totally paranoid. I grew up in a family that did not believe that ghosts or entities or monsters were real. Um, I always thought I had a hard time sleeping because I was always scared. I didn't really tell my family about this, but I was always scared that someone was in my room or someone was going to jump through my window or something was going to come out from under the bed. And one time, this did not help at all. I was under the covers, probably like 8 years old or younger, looking at my floor, freaking out. And I saw this like circle on the floor that was kind of moving around the floor, and a hand came out of it. And I was like, okay, that's not real. That's too scary. And so, ever since then, and I watched a lot of horror movies. So the filters that I started to look at the entity world through were based on a lot of horror, scary movies. I don't know how I got so lucky to watch so many horror movies, but I was. And they were fine. But now I'm like, had I known before, it wouldn't have taken so much time to get rid of all of those lies about entities. So growing up, I never got rid of that fear or like anxiety of something always being around, or if I were to go into new places or different countries, it took me a really long time to even move away out of the airport. Or if I was staying with someone, I would be locked in my room. I was just like too scared to move because I had no idea that I was aware. I was aware of energies. I was aware of entities. I was aware of people's heads, entities' heads. There's not much of a difference between, if we're talking about people entities and people in bodies. Are you or are you not an entity that is cooperating with the body? And when that body one day dies, what do you become? Do you actually lose you, or do you, the being, never die? Do you become an entity? And do you get to choose a new body? Do you want to hang around for a while in your, identity of who you are? Do you want to morph into something else? And this is something, if you have entities around, or, a grandparent or a family member, or just your entities tend to float to or come to people. Float, in my head, they float. They might not all float, but they might tend to come to you if you have entity capacities, and you don't even know it. So as a kid, not knowing that I had a capacity with entities, just thinking that this anxiety was normal. I mean, entities, I was listening, so they kept coming, and throughout my life. So it wasn't until I took my first entities class that this anxiety dissipated. I had done access for maybe a year or two. I saw that they had all these cool different classes you could take. And so I took a bars class, I took the foundation, I took energetic synthesis of being. And the energetic synthesis of being, I went into that class, and it was like the whole class was about clearing entities, that particular one, clearing entities, clearing walk-ins, clearing original occupants, clearing demons. I'm like, what is going on? What? This is real. And so I'm like, okay, if the guy in the book, my Being You book, says this stuff is real, maybe I should check it out. So I went on the list of the Talk to the Entities classes, and I saw that there was a class, Talk to the Entities, created by Shannon O'Hara. And I was like, okay, I'm taking that. Like, whatever it takes, I'm doing it. I did not have much money at the time. I think I was making 300 US dollars a month. No, that can't be. A week at least, a month. I'd have been really poor, but that's all right. In America, $300 a week, which is not much when you're living in a big city, Denver. And so I was like, ugh, I know I have rent, I'm in school, all these things, but I need to take this class. So I chose to do it. I took this class for 2.5 days. And by the end of day one, that fear, it was the weirdest feeling, but that anxiety, and that like kind of like just felt like a jail, like I was trapped all the time, had dissipated and released. And it was the first time I found out that I was aware of entities, and that all of the voices I was hearing, you don't have to hear voices in order to, perceive entities are there, but all of the ideas, thoughts, feelings, emotions, the stuff that was locking me up so that I couldn't move was actually my awareness of entities. So I was like, wow, this is so cool. I just feel so free. And I went to go to my office to go do payroll, and it was nighttime. So this is like right after class. It was nighttime. It was dark, the scariest time to, for entities to come out. And I was like a little nervous by myself. And I opened the door, and I had a feeling. I was like, I know I'm going to see something. Is this real? I don't know. But I opened the door, and there was this big purple orb on the stairway. I was like, purple orb. Oh my God. Entity. Okay. This is all happening in a flash of a second. I should be calm. I should be able to be present with this entity. I should. And I slammed the door. I'm like, nope, 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 nope. I'm not ready. I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready to see entities. I'm happy with this new piece of awareness of entities. And I'm sorry for slamming the door on you. Maybe try it again tomorrow. But it was just so funny looking at myself. Like, some people see entities and a lot don't, but everyone can perceive them. You just have to start honing in on the way you do that. And if you would like to start seeing them, you can ask to. The only reason you can't see entities is because you don't really want to. After I saw that one, and then I thought about how many entities are in Denver, I was like, you know what? I'm okay with not seeing all the entities. So there's no right, there's no wrong. You're not wrong if you don't see them. You're not right if you do see them. And a lot of, judgment has been placed on people who see entities, people who don't, and then the people who do have used their powers against others to, um, tell people what to do, or tell them what to think, or tell them what they should be doing with their life, all of that. And what I love about Talk to the Entities is it's just a bunch of tools and a bunch of clearings to empower you to know what you know, without having to rely on someone else's version of what they think is going on. Because really, the only person that knows what is happening, what's true for you, is you. The only one that really knows what's true for the entity is them. And you just get to talk to the entities, empowers you to open up a conversation that allows that communication, communion to be in a certain way, so that each of you can have more ease, or so that you just have more ease with entities in general. So Paula is asking, how do you define an entity, and how can you differentiate an entity from another being you are contacting? So thank you. Great taster question, because I was like, oh, shoot, this is a taster class. What do you do? What should I talk about? Because I talk about entities every day. I use these tools every single day. My friends and I, if we're trying to create a class or solve a problem, we clear, communicate, receive, and cooperate with entities pretty much first and foremost with whatever we're doing. So an entity is any energy that can be defined in this world. So that could be you yourself have a body, you have a name, you're a boy, you're a girl, you have your certain preferences, you act a certain way. So you by definition are an entity, even if you have a body. There are people entities, so people whose bodies have died and they are now in their definition, their identity of who they were at the time of that body, now in a ghost body. There are earth spirits. There's entities and energies that work with the creation of the earth and nature. There are all over the board. Like there are demons, there are good, bad, ugly, like creature entities, animal entities. There are businesses, so you can speak to your business, you can speak to your bank account. Literally anything that you have defined, you can speak to. You can, including things like your computer. Oh my God, I can't believe my computer has lasted this long. I'm also an oracle for Dr. Dane here, so I'm typing everything he says for 1 billion classes a year and working with entities and doing my own stuff in my computer. I don't know how it's lasted, like, God, I think 8 years, but I just talk to it all the time. And I've created a relationship, a creationship with my computer. So it's still rocking. So that is the definition of an entity. It can be a book, a song, anything that you're trying to cultivate, trying to birth into the world, like a book or a song or a business, you can start to talk to, just like when you are creating a baby. Of course, you're not going to do the physical things you would to do that, with a book or a business or something, but you still, like before you even think of having a child, you can start to talk to that entity or those entities that are coming to be with you and begin the conversation even before they show up physically. And if you are, so can you differentiate an entity from another being you are contacting? So all entities, entity is the big, broad umbrella word for everything, and then everything else underneath it falls under the category of entity. You'll hear people talk about entities, and so you can either guess what they're saying, fill in the blanks, or you could ask them, what kind of entity are you talking about? Are you talking about a people? That could be a great conversation. If you find people talking about entities, or if you're at work, be like, oh, in a business meeting, the entity, blah, blah, blah. Oh, what kind of entity is that? That would be funny. Please do and let me know. Let's see. Abir said, being and receiving with entities, can I be specific of what I want? I want to pass my professional intentional exam, making a deal with them to support me with it by business hours or etc. Awesome. So Abir's asking, can I receive things from entities? So if you think of like a genie in a bottle, that is a pretty stereotypical entity that has been enslaved. And then if you ever find one and you rub its bottle, then it is, yours for 3 wishes and it must do what you say. Otherwise it can never leave. Oh my gosh. And you guys have to watch the movie 3,000 Years of Longing. If you've ever seen that, if you haven't, it is such a good entity movie. And so I just love how accurate it is for that version of a story and how entities can get stuck for thousands and thousands of years. Okay, I also have ADHD and ADD and everything. So sometimes my brain, I'm like, we could talk about curses and spells we can talk about, but first we'll stick with up here. So you can receive from and with entities. There's so many stories of, Shannon, if you read her book, Talk to the Entities, there's lots of stories in there about, an entity bringing her a diamond ring. There's always, extra money after class that the entities are gifting her, and gifts can just show up in so many different ways. And we are going to talk about this. We won't talk about it too much on this taster, We are going to have a Talk to the Entities introduction class that will be online where we can go more into this, and even more so in the Talk to the Entities beginning class. The beginning class is where we really start to talk about clearing, getting rid of all of your fear stuff, but receiving, cooperating, and really digging into these subjects. And of course, the intermediate is like a whole crazy ball game. But one thing you want to recognize is if you're ever asking an entity to do something for you and you know that you can't do it for yourself, or you're not willing to do it for yourself, or you don't believe in yourself enough, or you're not making you the source of receiving the thing or the outcome, an entity cannot help you because you can't receive it. You have to be willing to be the source, and then entities can contribute in whichever ways they can. So if someone was asking for $1 million, and it was your best friend, and you really wanted to give it to them, but what are the points of view that come up? If you wanted to give your friend $1 million, would you be able to right now, with where you're at in life, with what they can receive, with how it would affect your friendship, would that even be a possibility? And that's kind of a big number. We could have used smaller, but it's like, okay, if you're asking for $1 million and you're getting pissed off that the entities aren't bringing it to you, what capacity do they have to give it to you in the first place? Because not all entities have the same capacities with money or anything else. And what are you willing to receive? And so you just get to be totally present with that. A more fun way to go about this, just using Abir's example, her professional intentional exam, or international exam maybe, you could just start to ask questions. So if you're new to Access, you can also go to the accessconsciousness.com site or on YouTube, and there's so many videos of different tools you can use. I have a bunch on my website that I use all the time, or on my YouTube. And so you want to start broadening your spectrum of including everything and everyone to contribute to what you're asking for. So the way you do that is through a question, or the way I do that is through a question. So if I were to have this crazy exam, I would say, oh my gosh, everything that doesn't allow this to turn out even better than I ever could have imagined, I destroy and uncreate it. Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, poc, all nine shorts, boys, povids, and beyonds. Any entities that are willing, capable, able, and desire to contribute to me that know about this, please do. And then everything that doesn't allow this to allow me to pass this exam with total ease, I destroy and uncreate it. Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, poc, all nine shorts, boys, povids, and beyonds. And I would get your bars run too. If you don't know what the bars are, the Access Consciousness bars, check them out. There are lots of facilitators around. Getting your bars run, these points on your head, helps to helps you to choose to lower your walls when you're communicating, receiving, cooperating, clearing entities. And before you take exams too, get your bars run. You might just do really good. You never know. It starts to get rid of the points of view of, that you can't, into possibilities. So Mariella is saying, sometimes I feel that there is some entity that does not let me see well. How can I make it go away and let me be seen? Because it doesn't let me work, read, etc., but other things, if I see well. So rather than, and again, we go into this so much in the beginning, and it is so helpful, because I used to do the same thing until I Talk to the Entities, and I still practice. The first thing a lot of people want to do, especially with entities, is to blame them for what's going on in your life. So you want to look at anywhere where you're blaming entities for why something isn't working. And if you have blamed them, and then, it changed and everything got better, then yay, maybe it was their fault. But if you've been blaming them for a while, you've been clearing them for a while, it's not changing, then you might want to ask a different question. I can't tell you how many times I have blamed, for me more, it was always money problems. I can't tell you how many times I've blamed entities for my money problems, when in actuality, I was just aware of an entity that was around that was trying to contribute to my money. And I was like, this thing needs to go away. This is why I want to go bankrupt. Like all these heavy things, all these lies, I thought were what this entity was saying. Like I literally wanted to go bankrupt for a whole weekend. I was like, this is the only choice. I have to kill everything. I have to go bankrupt. I can't make money. And I'm like, okay, hold on. I had just taken the money and entities class like the week before, a couple weeks, where I invited entities in to contribute to helping me with money, contributing with money. And so, I'm like, this sucks. Like, I know there's an entity there, it won't clear. And so finally I was like, oh my gosh, wait a second. Do I have, my filters up? Do I have my barriers up? Is this entity, I did not ask, is it here to clear, cooperate, receive, or contribute? And I was like, oh man, it's here to cooperate. I'm like, I am so sorry. Nice to meet you. Hello, who are you? And so I don't necessarily see entities a lot with my eyes, but I do see them with my mind's eyes sometimes. And again, that you don't want to like totally trust what you see in your mind's eye, because that can be altered with your points of view of what or who the entity is, what it's supposed to be, whatever. But the way I was able to receive this entity was through, and the way it could communicate with me was through a picture of like kind of a cartoon looking little, he was a goblin. It looked like a goblin. I'm like, are you a goblin? And he was like, yeah, sure. Yes, I'm a goblin. I'm like, oh, what's your name? And I got Mortimer. So how whenever I notice he's around, he kind of flashes me that picture and I know that Mortimer's around. I was like, oh my God, cool, a goblin. This is so awesome. And of course, that's our words that we use. It's okay to use words that you've learned. If you need to like speak to yourself or speak to other people, you can use the word goblin. And I knew that he was like something different, but he was portraying himself as a goblin. And I was like, that works for me because I don't want to, my ADD, OCD mind will go. I'm like, well, what are you really? And that may never get answered. So, but I did ask him, I was like, okay, Mortimer, I know you showed up like this, and I know that you are also something greater too. So can you show me like another form that you are? Like, and so I just asked that question, just open up a conversation with your new entity friends. And all of a sudden it was like, what I saw was the broom just poofed into all this kind of gold dust. It just everywhere looked like it had a shimmer of gold, like in the air everywhere. And I was like, that's amazing. I like this form too. So every time Mortimer shows up, I always, that thought of the gold just warms my heart. And I'm like, oh. So with the sight thing, if this has been going on for a while and you didn't have to blame the entities, if by blaming it hasn't changed, then you want to change your tactic. If blaming does change it, awesome. You just get to acknowledge it and moved on. Yay, I blamed and it changed. And if it's not, you want to ask a different question. So I would ask like, what am I unwilling to perceive, know, be, and receive here? A lot of eyesight stuff, yes, can definitely be entities. I've worked with lots of horses who kind of get like a film over their eye, or it looks like, they have cataracts or something, and cleared entities, and that's started to help change things, or they got to have a different choice with something. But with your eyes, you can clear entities, or if that's not working, what am I unwilling to perceive, know, be, receive? With your ears, what am I unwilling to hear? And it's not that you're going to get an answer right away. You might, and it might take a while too. So, you know, it took with Mortimer, it took a whole, probably longer than that weekend, but really like the climax of that, I need to go bankrupt. And I wasn't willing to live with that. I'm like, this sucks. I need to ask a different question. But it took to the point of total suffering in order for me to finally ask a question and finally receive what was actually occurring. So with the eyesight thing, it's like, okay, if I were just to let show up whatever needs to show up, whatever weird awareness I get, what am I unwilling to see? Or who am I unwilling to talk to that's trying to talk to me? So, oh, I had another good thought, but it disappeared. We'll just see what else. Yay. Entities with kids, definitely. Kids can come to the class free. Entities, talking to kids about entities, you know, the earlier the better, because again, when I was a kid, I had nobody to talk about this with. And I grew, like, it wasn't until my 30s that I finally had relief from what I was aware of. So the earlier you can talk about it, the better. If you have nothing else, you could just open up the Talk to the Entities book and, you know, go through things in there and see what you find to talk to them about. There's lots of videos again on YouTube. And there is Talk to the Entities. There's a Talk to the Entities and Kids. I'm sorry, Entities and Kids specialty class. It's like a little 3-call class, and they're all so good. And that one's really good. So if you are curious about that, get that on the Talk to the Entities website. I don't know what that says. Can you talk about cooperating with entities from your point of view? So yeah, and cooperating we get a lot more into in the intermediate. So I can tell you like a little bit here. This is so fun because we have such a short time to go over things, and it's like, okay, let's do as much as we can. And also, what questions can we ask that are going to start to open up this more for all of us, no matter where you're at, if you're beginning, intermediate, or advanced. So, you know, cooperating with entities, how do you cooperate with people? Do you go out in your, you know, go out of your house every day looking to start a conversation with people? Are you that kind of person? Do you go to the store and have a grand old time and you're like, yay, I want to talk to everybody and everybody wants to talk to me? Do you ask people for help, or do you tend to avoid people? Do you tend to not want anyone to help you? Do you like to just do things on your own? Do you just want to order DoorDash, or, you know, do you not want to hang out with people that much? You might look at where you're doing that with entities too, because it's not that much different. You could say you want to cooperate with entities or open up a conversation, and you want to look at, I just think, you know, looking at how you interact with people is a great way, even though sometimes it's easier to communicate with, or, you know, communicate or be with entities than it is with people, or vice versa. But I would look at your normal everyday life and what do you usually do, and see if you are willing to cooperate with things as you are now. And if you would like to cooperate with entities more, start to put your attention on them more. Start to ask, hey, who would like to play with me? Like, you don't have to be scared of pulling in the bad or wrong entities. You can clear them. You can ask them to leave. It's really easy. And if you have a capacity with it, you probably notice more, you know, demons around, or unconscious, anti-conscious entities. You may have made it a problem for a really long time, but anything, and I've found this to be so true with entities and everything, anything that you're making a problem 1,000 times out of 10, that's my point of view, but 99% of the time, it's because you have a capacity there with those specific entities or energies that you haven't acknowledged and honed the skills with. So demons, easy peasy. Evil stuff, easy peasy. Now, what about receiving. And I'm just speaking for myself. I'm like, that stuff's nothing. What's it going to take to really create and cooperate with entities, like to create a totally different world, a totally different planet? So again, opening up the conversation. If you don't, then you can't cooperate with entities. How do you use your acknowledgement with entities to make money? So you just get to see receiving. There is money and entities classes and things like that. But as much as I can say right now about that is, again, you can't make entities the source of a specific money thing. I would say play with it more. It's like, okay, let me just talk to entities. And if it's fun, whatever is fun for you, money's going to show up. But just ask a question. What would it take to talk to entities and receive money for it? Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, poc, all nine shorts, boys, poets, and beyonds. And acknowledge every single thing that the entities are contributing to you. Because again, not all of them can have the capacity with money, and some do, but some have the capacity with bodies, with business, with ease, with space, with just, white light, who knows? And so the weirdest, I don't even know where they got this idea, but the weirdest thing that ever showed up for me, one of them, there's been a lot of weird stuff, but I think I was doing Talk to the Entities certified facilitator class in Paris, and we had just cleared all these things. And, my friend Monica and I were having a blast clearing entities and talking and communicating to nature spirits everywhere. And then I got a phone call from my old apartment building. They're like, you used to live here. I'm like, They're like, you have like at least 5 giant packages, 5 giant boxes of something. Please come get them. I'm like, where are they from? They're like, they're from Las Vegas. They're from California. They're from, like Washington. They were from all over the United States. I'm like, what the heck? What is that? So I finally got home and I went to the building and I was laughing with the lady. I'm like, do you want to open them with me? Because I don't know what they are. She's like, yeah. So we open these boxes and we're like, and inside is a bunch of sugarless, organic, Asian green tea in bottles, like boxes of them. I'm like, what the hell? Okay. Well, okay, is this, and so I just asked because it was so funny. I'm like, is this entities or something else? And I was like, okay, entities. Thank you so much. This is the funniest gift I've ever received. Do you want me to come to Asia or something? Like, what is, thank you. And I didn't really know what it meant. It doesn't have to mean anything. But the joy, the laughter, the humor, the capacity of those entities to even do that, and how it was done was so funny and such a gift that, like, the joy of receiving is what is going to grow your receiving into even greater. So acknowledge the weird stuff that shows up. Acknowledge if money shows up. Acknowledge whatever, even if it's the bad stuff, acknowledge, okay, I'm grateful for this showing up because, now I get to practice lowering my barriers, saying hello. What else is possible here I've never considered? Blue. How do you know which entity is what if you can't see it? So we do a bunch of exercises again in the beginning class of communicating with entities and getting to know who or what is around. And for the most part, you just ask, okay, is this an entity or something else? Entity. Okay. Is this a demon or something else? Okay, something else. Do I know this person or not know this person? And we give you a whole chart that you can go through. Like if you forget, you use your chart, but you can basically play. In America, we had a game called 21 Questions, and so I played 21 questions with the entity. What is it? Is it sad? Is it happy? How does it feel? Like, what is it? What do I sense about this entity? And then you just start going from there. So you don't ever have to be specific. That's the beauty of these tools. questions are all encompassing. So you don't have to, some entities you do specifically sometimes have to call them by their name, like demons respond to demon, or smoke entities, or frozen entities, inculcated entities. Some entities you do, but for like 80-90% of the entities, you do not have to know them, like the specific type they are. And if you do, then play with that. Like Mortimer, he ended up like I got a name. Who knows if that's even his real name, but he gave me a name that I would recognize. And so we use that name, but I'm pretty sure that's not his real name, nor does he probably even use names. But he did for me. He's so great. Thanks, Mortimer. That's the C one. Create with entities in business, start talking to your business. You know, a lot of this stuff we'll go over to in more depth in the intro class if you want to do that online, or you can always get private sessions, or you can just go to a you know, beginning class, or there's lots of stuff online too. There's so much stuff online. Oh, repeat. Yes. Okay. Someone repeated the movie. Great. Someone blame them for their body stuff. I know, me too. So Jennifer believes her awareness is growing, and she's being repelled by people and bodies, like feeling sick around them. Could that be an awareness of their entities or demons? Realizing I have an X-Men body, I desire to be more empowered with all of this. I hear ya. Well, bodies are entities also. So if you, again, we kind of talked about at the beginning that you are an entity. I should ask you, are you an entity that works with your body, or are you your body? Or are you inside your body, or is your body inside you? So what I've found is my body has started changing so much. From years of clearing entities, it's done all kinds of things, but ever since COVID, I don't even know what happened to my body. COVID happened, and like, it's like entities, points of view, viruses, all kinds of stuff, antiviruses. I'm like, what the heck? And my mom got cancer, and all these things were happening. And so my body went like ballooned up and locked up. It was so painful by the end of, you know, even a year after COVID, I was like, what is going on? I'm like, all right, I am sorry. I'm not paying attention to you. What are you letting me know of? So you can talk to your body too. Right Body for You book is so amazing for I use those tools all the time for actually, you know, empowering me to talk to my body in a way that we can both understand. And so finally, I like to wait until the most extreme pain point of whatever I'm dealing with and before I change it. So finally, I just couldn't move and I couldn't fit in my clothes. And I was like, I'm like, all right, body, I'm sorry. I will work with you on this. I'm going to change this. So yes, clearing entities, but also asking my body, the entity, how would you like to move? Would you like to move? It's like, yes, please get up and do something. I'm like, all right. So I just committed to moving, asking my body and moving how it would like to move. You know, really paying attention to what I was eating, not like counting calories, but literally doing muscle tests. Like, do you want to eat this? No. And it was like healthy stuff too. I'm like, do you want this vitamin? No. Okay. Okay. Up to you. So I started talking to my body in that way. And, you know, that can really help. You can also acknowledge your body's just going to start letting you know, yes, oh my God, about entities. So if you're feeling sick or if you're around people, you just might be aware of what's going on for them that they don't even know. Your body's just kind of a sounding board, sort of. We've created it as more of a sounding board that things get stuck to. Whereas the more your interesting point of view, like, thanks for letting me thanks for letting me know, body. You know, you can start to let it through and start to let it dissipate out of you. So any point of view you take, even from an entity who doesn't have a body anymore, you're so aware that you'll pick up on their points of view, their whole universe. And if any part of that you think is true or yours, or you buy as yours, you basically lock that point of view into your body and start creating that. So all the points of view you guys have locked into your body from any person, any body, any entity, anyone that isn't actually true for you, will you destroy and uncreate it all times a godzillion. Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all nine shorts, boys, povids, and beyonds. Vicky said, are you going to be doing a business hours class? Okay, now I am, because you're like the fifth person that has asked me. So yeah, I'll be doing a business hours class. Yay, that's fun. Business hours you learn about in the beginning. We talk to the entities, calls them business hours because it's cute and insignificant. The less number 200 rule in this thing, suggestion, don't make anything significant. The less significant you make it, the easier and more space you have with changing it, with cooperating with it, with whatever you want. So if you find yourself worrying, making this a problem, making it significant, just stop, take a big breath and ask, okay, if I wasn't actually making this significant, what else would be possible here? But business hours are, you can actually set a time up for yourself every day to clear, communicate, cooperate, receive with entities. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. And for me, the less cranky, the less anxiety, the more ease, the less monkey mind I have when I'm doing my business hours every day with entities. The benefits, oh my gosh. Well, a lot of stuff I've talked about. What are the benefits of talking to entities? More space for me, from what I've known, and you guys can, share what you have discovered too, but more space, more ease, like things show up as if by magic. The horses I work with have so much more ease. Horses and animals, and especially cats, they also have capacities with entities, and sometimes they get filled up or stuck, or there's old riders on horses, like dead riders from previous lifetimes. So for me, the capacity to contribute to animals has completely changed my life and their life, and how easy it is to work with a bad horse, or a sick cat, or a angry dog. Entities and animals has just been mind-blowing for me. I don't know the answer to that. Smoke entities we talk about in the beginning class. Is there any relationship between entities and SOP? SOP is a class that Dr. Dane here does, Symphony of Possibilities, where you learn to, hone your skills on being in communion and in the symphony with the whole universe, playing with molecules, changing people's lives, changing your life. And there's definitely entities. There are conscious entities in the universe too. In fact, a lot of them. There just hadn't been a ton here until now. Now a door has been opening so much, and you can actually ask to talk to Shannon's Beings of Light book is awesome. You want to read the Talk to the Entities book first, and then the Beings of Light, because there are so many conscious beings in the universe that you can play with and talk to, that really are like, and your teammates that are waiting for you to ask, basically. And when you work in the SOP, when you go do a symphony class or a symphony session, you're working with conscious beings too. So absolutely, there is a creationship with entities in SOP. Let's see, we just have a little bit longer. Yay, bye, Paula. Cool. Carla says, I'd love to meet you in South America. Yes, please, Argentina, or anywhere. So thank you so much, you guys, for this awesome little taste of Talk to the Entities. I wish I could answer more questions, because it really is a taste. This is just to, contribute to you hopefully opening up your awareness of that there is actually something else possible with entities, whether you've been doing this for a long time or you're brand new. Asking questions always creates greater. And we have the Talk to the Entities introduction class live streamed, so you can join that from Mexico City. Or I would love if you live in Mexico, if you don't live in Mexico, if you want to come to Mexico City, it is the best food ever and the best people. And oh my gosh, come see us and come play with us in Mexico City. Oh, and it's this body's birthday that weekend. So come join me for my birthday celebration in Mexico City, February 22nd. We begin for the weekend. Thank you so much. I freaking adore you all, and I hope to see you around the world soon.